I'm recording.
We'll go. Okay. You ready? Yep.
And
Here we go.
stop!
Sequoia Schmidt, welcome to my podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dom.
This is embarrassing. Before we sat down, you
No, let me tell it. Let me tell it, please. So I grew up in Hawke's Bay, and The Edge was a really popular radio station there. And I have a very vivid memory of being like 11 or 12 years old. And JJ and Dom. Was it JJ and Dom or Dom and JJ? It was JJ and Dom.
Us two and Mike Perdue.
And Mike, Mike, who I'm seeing like tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm so excited to see him. So you guys had a radio station or a radio show, and there was one particular thing that's like burned in my mind was that on the show you used to do this thing where somebody would go to the toilet and would pee, and they'd hold the phone up, and you'd count how many seconds they peed for. What was it? Tinkle
Tuesday.
Tinkle
Yeah,
Tuesday.
yeah.
And so that is literally burned in my mind from childhood.
I thought it was a great radio. It was $1 a second.
$1 a second.
So
That would have worked.
most weeks it was less than $50 or $60 that you pay for. I think we ended up stopping it because we got scammed because someone had like a massive bottle and it just kept on going. It was, yeah. Oh, and I feel awkward about that now. Like I'm sort of squirming in my seat a little bit because we'll get into this this is all part of the fabric of your amazing story of your life. But you went off the rails pretty badly after that, and I'm wondering if it's what you were listening to on the radio.
Exactly. It was all you guys. If it wasn't for your radio show, I would have had a nice normal life, no childhood trauma. I would have been just fine.
Okay, that's good. Okay, well, so yeah, I'm removing myself from all responsibility. Okay, hey, welcome back. First of all, connection to New Zealand. Do you feel like a Kiwi?
I do, yeah. I mean, I was born in Napier,
Yeah.
and I was born and raised in Hawke's Bay for the most part. Like, most of my childhood that I remember was predominantly in either Tiawanga or Hastings. And yeah, I left for like quite a while before I came back. I came back for my first book tour, and that was kind of like a jarring way to return. I mean, like I came back and like cycled the whole country. And that was like my return back. It's like I want to smell it and sweat in it. And that was my return back. But yeah, it's so funny because like to Americans, I'm not an American because I have like a little bit of a twang to my accent. And to Kiwis, I sound so American.
So American.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good. So your parents are American.
So my mom's Italian American,
Okay.
and my dad's German American.
Right.
And then they moved over here before I was born. Like,
because your mum got invited to move here by a Māori tribe.
yes. So she was originally working in Australia with an Aboriginal tribe there. And then she was invited to work with Ngāti Kahungunu Iwi, and she was a choreographer for Kahurangi, the dance company. And so, like, there's pictures of, like, while she's pregnant with me, she was choreographing for Kahurangi. So that's how the citizenship happened. That's how they moved to New Zealand. So they moved here before I was born.
Yeah, 'cause is your middle name Māori?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it means like
Karanima.
break of dawn or start of day or
Yeah.
Yeah.
First light of dawn, Karanima, because I was born at 6:06 in the morning, so right as the sun was coming up. And the Huata family was really close to us, and so they gave me my middle name.
Fuck, that's cool.
Yeah.
And what's Sequoia? Is that a national park?
Tree.
A tree.
Yeah, it's like the tallest tree in the world. And yeah, there's also a national park, and yeah.
And Schmidt's
The
just
redwood.
Schmidt.
Yeah.
No explanation required. So how does it feel when you come back home to New Zealand now? Like, is it painful? Is it happy? Is it?
No, it's super happy.
Yeah.
I always forget how small the country is. Like, it's a small country.
Not if you're riding it on a bike.
No, not if you're
Self-sufficient.
riding it on a bike, that's for sure. No, not just physically. Like, it's actually just in the media. Like, for example, I was at the AM show this morning, and like one of the guys who was in the newsroom was one of the reporters for the show Sunday. That after my dad and brother passed away, I was in California, and they sent a reporter there to interview me and do a 2-part special for Sunday, and he was that reporter. And so it's such a small world in the sense that like everything's so interconnected. Same thing, like Hawke's Bay is tiny. Like in terms of like once you've been in bigger cities and stuff, places like Hawke's Bay, Hastings, like everybody knows everyone. Like it's a small place.
Well, no, it is. It is small. I was down there for a wedding a few months ago. I was staying at Craigie Range.
Yeah.
And I ended up like going for a run from Craigie Range to Hastings and around Hastings and then back again. Like it's very small.
It's very small.
Very
And
runnable.
The community is like super tiny. Like you were saying that, you know, I was a naughty kid, right? So let me emphasize this story with I was a naughty kid. But like...
Oh, no, we'll get to that. I've got a whole card called childhood.
Oh, shit. But like, just to give you an example of how small Hastings was, I got caught... I used to steal from the Warifari all the time. Like...
Yeah, I can't believe you call it the Warifari. That's amazing.
Like, I used to steal from there all the time. And like... One time when I stole from there, it was the police came and got me, and because they knew me pretty well by then, and they came to get me. And by the time we went like, you know, I don't know, a kilometer to get to my house to drop me off, my dad already knew because the neighbor had seen me in the cop car earlier. Like that's how small the town is, right?
Can't get away with jack shit.
Can't get away with anything.
So you got a lifetime ban at the warehouse, or are you?
I
welcome?
did, but I walked in there like during my second book tour. I walked in there, and I was like really sketched out. I like had a hat on, and I was like, oh my god, they're gonna like never let me inside the warehouse again. But of course, they like.
So
They
they
didn't even notice. In fact, one of the guys on the checkout counter like recognized me from my book tours. So.
My God, that's amazing. Oh, come on, the amount of theft at those places, you would have been very low level.
I was very low level.
Yeah. So you got a new book out, Dream of Flying, which is about base jumping.
Yeah, Dream of Flight. Yep.
So base jumping, that's where you have this. You look like flying a squirrel.
Yeah.
So
So
what-
base jumping is just jumping off of any fixed object.
Yeah. So it's an acronym. Eh? What is it?
Yeah. So
Building.
yeah, building is B.
Yes. 1 from 4. Antenna. Aerial.
Building, antenna. And then S is span. So that's like a bridge of some kind. And earth. So it's just an acronym for those 4 things. So jumping off of any of those 4 objects is base jumping. But the book in its entirety is about more the experience of human flight and like confronting fear and my relationship with fear. So it goes, the base jumping is a part of it, obviously, but it also goes through skydiving, it goes through wingsuiting, it goes through, paragliding, speed riding, like a whole different types of aspects of human flight, including, being in a wind tunnel in Russia and things like that. So it's really just an exploration of my relationship with my own fear. Like that's most of my, like my second book isn't about cycling around New Zealand. It's just the main storyline is
just sort of the
cycling
backbone
around
of
New
it,
Zealand.
really.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
backbone,
yeah.
but really it's about like an emotional journey.
Well, what are your fears?
So
I'm
when
guessing
I
they're not normal
started,
fears.
when I started that particular story, it was 8 years ago now, and I had a fear of trusting myself and my own abilities, and it started with a bungee jump when I was really young, in Taupo actually, and the fear that I felt in that, and then my first skydive, the fear that I felt with that, and then deciding to get my skydiving license, and then it became a fear of not just the activity that I'm doing, but it became a fear of trusting my own instincts, my own abilities, and navigating my way to mitigate the situation and the risk as much as possible, but potentially get myself out of a gnarly situation.
Yeah. So yes, so you were a sky jumper, so you did like 250 jumps or something, and then you started base jumping.
Yeah, I had about 250
Yeah.
skydives before I started base. But you're still like, even when you're base jumping, you're still skydiving.
Yeah. So you have that suit on, the wingsuit.
So wingsuit is something that you put on, right? So like, you can wingsuit skydiving, which I do, or you can wingsuit base jumping, which I have not done. And there are a lot of people who wingsuit base. Generally, you learn how to base jump first, and then there's a series of steps that happen. Like you put on a 2-piece suit, and like a sausage suit. So in the book, you know, I'm in Europe and I've got a suit on. That would be the two-piece suit, and that suit inflates to help give you lift and glide. And then from the two-piece suit, you can either go to like a onesie where you your legs are connected like a wingsuit, but your arms are free, or you can go straight into a wingsuit. And then same thing in the sky. You can do it with, you know, a squirrel suit on, or a phoenix fly, or any of the other squirrels, just a brand. Or you can do it with a two-piece suit, or you can do it with a onesie, or you can do it slick with no type of suit on at all. And so there's so many different navigations. It's so funny when people talk about like skydiving or base jumping. It's kind of like saying climbing, right? Like there's so many facets to climbing. So if I just say skydiving, that encompasses the whole thing in its entirety, just like climbing encompasses the whole thing. But if you look at the facets within climbing, you have ice climbing, rock climbing, mountaineering, like free solo, right? Yeah. Tread climbing, gym climbing. Like there's a whole bunch of different facets within it. And same thing goes for skydiving, right? You have free flying, you have wingsuiting, you have tracking, there's multiple different facets within it. Same thing for base jumping. There's multiple facets.
Right, so that's a whole separate podcast.
It's a whole separate thing.
I guess it's just this natural sort of intrigue or curiosity, because it's something that 99.999% of us would never do.
Yeah.
And for anyone that does it, there's just this intrigue, because we just, I suppose, naturally assume you've got a death wish.
Which, I mean, to be fair, like, there are a lot of jumpers who do. I did this as an exploration of what I was interested in, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to write about. Most people, and I am definitely not even close to the most experienced jumper out there. There's people who dedicate their entire lives to this sport and this activity, and that is their everything, and it encompasses everything within them. And yeah, sure, I've met a lot who have death wishes. I'm not going to deny that.
I feel like that's a cop-out thing to say, because anyone that does it doesn't really want to die. Maybe they enjoy the exhilaration of feeling close to death, but
yeah,
they don't. I mean, it's a cop-out sort of.
It can be, yeah. I mean, I think that there's a very fine line that's walked in that world that can get extremely dangerous. And, you know, everyone has a different explanation for their exploration of it. And a lot of it depends on, like, the person that you're talking to. Because two jumpers are not alike.
Right.
There's a lot of differences between jumpers.
So if it was illegal, if you were allowed to, could you go to the jump platform on the Sky Tower in Auckland? Just using this as a reference point, because it's something most people listening to this will be able to relate to. Could you jump off that in one of your suits or whatever with a skydive backpack on and land safely on the ground? Yeah,
so it would be a base jump. You wouldn't be wearing a suit because it's too low. There's no point. The suit just gives you lift and glide, and you wouldn't need that for something like Sky Tower. And yeah, Sky Tower would make a great jump, because you're trying to avoid, like, you know, you don't want power lines and things like that, which it doesn't have. I was scouting it earlier, so it doesn't have. But there's like a nice landing area and everything like that. And there's people who specialize in this particular thing. This guy named Jamie Crawford, who's like in Los Angeles and San Diego, and all he does is jump urban, which is like, you know, buildings and stuff like that. But that part of it gets a little tricky because it's not exactly legal. So. That's not me. I'm not interested in that stuff. I have a company to run, so I have to be like a little bit careful on what I jump.
You got to think about the optics. Geez, that'd be a great promo for the book, though, wouldn't it? A cheeky arrest.
A cheeky arrest, yeah. My publicist wouldn't be very happy about that one.
But this is how you met your husband as well. He's a base jumper. He was like an instructor.
Yeah. So he instructs. He teaches people how to jump, and that's how we met. I was a jumper before I met him. Like, I had started base jumping already. But yeah, that's how we met and fell in love.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. It was very, very quick courtship, like 2 weeks before you got engaged.
Yeah.
Like, really, seems like you rush into a lot of things. But you guys even moved to Idaho so you could be near like a base jumping bridge.
Yeah, there's a bridge there, so he coaches base jumping.
Right.
So
how high's the bridge?
486, I think. Elevation 486. Yeah.
Meters.
Feet.
Feet.
Yeah.
Oh, so like 150 meters.
About that, yeah.
So you jump off that?
Yeah. It's good training, because, like, when you're on a span.
I would have thought the higher you are would be better training. Like there's more chance to.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, like this particular one is, like we were talking about the different facets. Like one of the facets is lower objects, right? So this particular one's good because it's got a great landing area, and if if your parachute has a 180, you can turn around and go to the landing area, and so it's a perfect place to coach, and that's what he does is he trains people how to base jump.
All right. Hey, thanks for that explanation. Feels like this is a whole separate podcast. So let's wind the clock back, go back to your childhood. So you're born in Hawke's Bay. Your dad's quite famous in mountaineering circles.
Yeah.
Marty Schmidt. And he had an obsession with K2.
He did, yeah.
What's the obsession? Because he's climbed Everest numerous times, right?
Yes.
So why are there... So K2's not as high as Everest. Why is K2 considered, so mysterious? Why is it so much more difficult
there was this saying years ago that you climb Everest, you're a climber to the world. You climb K2, you're a climber to climbers. And so, I think that it's very appealing to a lot of climbers. It's a beautiful mountain. It's super striking. I can understand why he was so obsessed with it. To be fair, that saying was made quite a while ago, and a lot has changed in mountaineering since then. Now that there's a lot more teams and a lot of fixed lines and stuff like that on K2, so it was a very different atmosphere when I grew up. When I grew up, the K2 was the holy grail of mountaineering, so I think that's part of the reason he was obsessed with it.
Yeah. And what are your recollections of your early years? Sounds like your dad was away a lot, like 9 months of the year.
You mean other than JJ and Dom playing Tinkle Tuesday? Is that what you mean?
That came later. But yeah, he sounds like an intriguing dude. Sort of happy energy, always topless, homemade sandals.
All of that, yeah. Tomato Peak is a huge one in my memory. It's so funny. I went back up there during my second book tour, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, I've climbed that mountain.
Yeah. Yeah, so he used to always teach climbing classes up there. So that was really early in my memory.
Yeah, but you had a great relationship with both your parents early on?
Early on,
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of left home quite young and, rebelled against everything to do with that and found business and started my company. And it wasn't until after they died that I kind of went back into the adventure space.
Yeah, because there was because I've done quite a bit of digging into your story. So there was so your dad was you loved your dad, but your dad was away a lot, so wasn't often there. Is that because it seems like you sort of had a chip on your shoulder with your dad? Was that sort of why?
No, I don't think so. I think that look, there's something that comes with, and this applies to really any extreme sport. You can apply this to base as well. There's something that comes with the personality that it's attracted to that particular world. And a lot of the time they have a very different sense of responsibility than what normal people would have, quote unquote, right? Because you have to be inherently selfish to do things like mountaineering or base jumping or anything like that. There has to be a vein of selfishness to that.
What, in terms of the time it takes, the time away from home, or the risk, or what?
All of it.
Okay.
Yeah, the pure dedication
that
it takes to reach a certain level in that activity. And, my father was one of the top in the world. And so I think that I was a really challenging child because I was very much like him, very driven like him.
Stubborn, strong-willed.
Very strong-willed. These are all traits I still have, right? They've
served you well in business.
Served me well in business, but yeah, I mean, in general, I was very, very similar to him in many regards. And so we, as I went into my teenage years, like many teenagers who challenged their parents, but his answer for it was to go back to the mountains, right? So I think that was something that I struggled with a lot. And we had a conversation before he passed away that was me trying to tell him, I was a child, you were an adult, you were responsible. But obviously that didn't really work that well.
Yeah, because the picture I can gather is he was what you'd call the cool dad. Like there wasn't a lot of like boundaries or parenting.
No, there was definitely none of that.
Yeah.
He parented in his own way.
Right.
Look, like I'm like really, I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I firmly believe that we choose our parents before we come into this earth. And I think that's a huge part of our human experience, and I wouldn't change it for a minute. His parenting style wasn't, stereotypical.
Conventional.
Or conventional in any regard whatsoever. But I learned a lot from both of my parents.
You go into the police care, foster care?
I was in and out of foster care for a little bit.
Was that sort of the beginning of that?
That was the beginning of that, but it lasted for a little while. And I don't know if you've ever been a foster home in Hastings. Hastings is rough. Hastings is not like a white picket fence kind of life. Like Hastings can be rough for sure.
Yeah, I lived in Hastings for a couple of years in the late 1970s, but it was a different place then. It's very rough now, and I'm guessing when you were growing up it was. So you were in foster care because because your mum wasn't fit to look after you and your dad was away. Is that or just
Child, Youth, and Family Protective Services here,
SIFs.
SIFs. Yeah, it's funny because I'll say SIFs and nobody knows what that means in the States, but SIFs stepped in, and I think it was like a mixture of stuff where it was. I'd be in the home for a little bit, and then if I was taken out of the home, like if Dad came back from an expedition, or if he went on an expedition and he arranged for somebody to take care of us, and then of course I was a super naughty kid, so I'd sneak out or something like that, and then I'd get in trouble, and then SIFs would come back and my caseworker would put me back in a home. So it was just like a lot of on and off of that. It's funny, I've started exploring it a little bit more as an adult, because when you deal with stuff like that, you kind of block it all out just to get through life. Then I'm starting to explore it a little bit more now.
unpack everything?
Unpack it all.
Well, because JJ and I, when we were together, we had like a family adoption. One of her nephews came to live with us when he was like 4 years and 11 months old. So
wow.
we did a lot of therapy on his behalf, and you learn that something like 80% of a brain development's done in the first 1,000 days or 3 years. So if the first 3 years are sound and relatively normal, then you're going to be pretty much all right.
Yeah.
So your first few years, okay?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not twitching too bad. I believe so. My mom tried to be a really, really good mother, and there are elements to her that were an incredible mother. That's why I said, I'm a firm believer you pick your parents, and I picked wonderful parents. They just weren't conventional parents in any way whatsoever. But if I look at my life and how it shaped out, I'm pretty good with it.
Yeah.
So.
That's great. But those the foster care experience, was that?
I don't remember a lot of it, to be honest. And I talked to a trauma therapist just a few weeks ago, actually, just because I'm looking at exploring a lot of that stuff, maybe for another book. I don't remember. There's a lot of. I think everyone has that. Do you remember all of your childhood?
No.
A lot of it kind of gets blocked out, I think. So that's a lot of my childhood. I literally don't remember a lot of it.
Yeah, do you find with writing, because I've written some books, mine are shitty books, they're, nothing like yours. But when you start writing, often it triggers off, it's almost like a snowball.
That's why I do it, because it's so cathartic.
Brings up other memories. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And then it's also just such a fun time capsule. My style of writing, nonfiction narrative, it is not a literary masterpiece in any regard whatsoever. I'm a publisher. I work with literary people. I'm not one of them. I just like capturing my time on this earth. It's a cool time capsule. That trip to Pakistan I took. When I was working on finishing this last book, I opened that first book and I was like, oh, fuck, I don't remember any of this. This is so cool. I can read back on what the curry tastes like and what the peak looked like and stuff that I wouldn't remember, So it's really nice to have that kind of cathartic time capsule.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you end up in Australia when you were a teenager?
I went to a performing arts high school.
Okay, yeah.
I applied to a performing arts high school and I think I just really wanted to get out of the situation that I was in.
So were you in foster care over there, or?
No, I emancipated. So I was legally allowed to be on my own.
So where were you living?
I think I was 14, maybe 15.
It's alarming, though. You're so young, right? You must look back now. How old are you now? 30? 33. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think when you look back on that now? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm like really impressed. Oh, I'm going to fucking cry. I'm like really impressed. Like,
yeah.
If I heard my life story, I'd be like, fuck.
Impressed. Like what, at your survival instinct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really impressed I made it out through all of that.
Bring out the tissue box.
Yeah.
27 minutes in. Yeah, you did bloody great. I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but you got pregnant over there at 15?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a tough one.
I suppose like you terminating it was just like a no-brainer. Like it was the only option at that age and stage of life.
Yeah, I think, I was so young. Yeah, I got a call from my dad and was like, all right, time to get an abortion. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being so open. Yeah. It's really impressive. Like, the woman that's sitting in front of me now and everything you've achieved with, what you've been through and survived and endured. It's fucking cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, I think so.
You should be proud of yourself. Even though your life to a lot of people, like with the base jumping and whatnot, seems chaotic now. I suppose it's controlled chaos now.
Yeah, mitigated chaos for sure.
Yeah,
I'm choosing which chaos I allow into my life and which ones I don't.
And then, so then you're sent to live with your granddad in Texas,
which was like
so this is after
polar opposite world.
Oh, I'm skipping out a bit here. So. Your dad's second wife, she tries to discipline you or tell you off, and you punch her in the face.
Yeah, she was a bit of a cunt. She still is. She lives in New Zealand, so I hope she listens to this one.
So so you come home. This is in Hawke's Bay. You come home late one night.
Yeah.
You had a thing that you did where when you arrived home, no curfew, of course. You just tap on your dad's door so he knows you're home safe. Mm-hmm. And then she wasn't aware of this thing, so she wakes up and has a crack at you.
This is like the first time I ever met her too. Like I'd never even met her. Never even met her. She gets up and starts screaming at me.
You're like, what? Nobody disciplines me.
Give her a nice punch in the face.
And then so then you get sent to shit. You must No,
then I go to boarding school.
Oh, boarding school.
That was right before boarding school.
Which one?
In Australia.
All right, okay.
Before the pregnancy.
Oh, good luck. You're not going to last long there, are you?
Yeah. And then from there, I get sent to Texas.
Yeah, and this sounds amazing. I think I heard this on another podcast you've done. So, your granddad, who I'm guessing you didn't even know very well.
No.
Yeah, so your granddad and his wife, Barbara, and he sounds like the most incredible fucking guy.
He was. Yeah, he was absolutely incredible. Yeah, he was amazing. He passed away just last year.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, honestly, it was like a really beautiful, it was a beautiful experience. I've never been able to, like, sit by somebody as they're dying before. Like, and so I spent a few months with him shortly before he died. And it was great. I, like, read to him every day and played classical music for him and just got really, like, good one-on-one time with him, which was nice.
Yeah, 'cause it seems like it was finally, even though the ship had probably already sailed in terms of the age you were when you got sent there, it seems like finally you had this sort of
stability.
like calm in your life. And he was like a non-smoker, non-drinker, but he bought you ciggies one day because you were...
Oh, he was like the most straight-laced person on the planet. Yeah. Like literally the most straight-laced. Woke up every morning, put on a suit, went to work, like was very, very Italian-American, loyal to his family, like a really good man. And yeah, so he definitely was not like with the naughty kids. He would be like the guy running the track if we were to kind of condense our personalities. He would be the one running the track up early at the track meet, and I'd be the one like smoking behind the bleachers. Like, we were just very, very opposite in our personalities. And so when he took me in, I think it was a bit of a challenge for him, but he like was so stable and so secure that it just gave me that what I needed at that period of time.
And his wife Barbara, like the first thing she says to you is, "Oh, you smell," something like that. Like,
yeah, I did smell, to be fair.
But they sent him. It's like feels like a wonderful part of your story. And then he had a line that he used to say to you, like, "You'll always have a home here," or something like that.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing after everything you've been through and the instability and everything, it must have just felt. I don't. Did you trust it? Like, did you trust it, or did you think this is another adult that's gonna fucking let me down eventually?
I think I tested him so many times that eventually I realized that, I trusted it. Like, it just took a lot. In the year that I lived with him, it took a lot, and then, even if because I left, I think I was 17 when I started my company, and I left his house, and even after that, I'd go over for Sunday dinners, and, he was a big part of my life. And I think that's what even the most unstable or naughty child needs, is just a sense of stability, Yeah.
Yeah, do you think, after your dad passed away, and actually even before he passed away, do you think he took on like a father figure role in your life? Would you say?
My father?
Yeah,
or my grandfather?
Your granddad, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he took on a sense of responsibility and stability that should come from a parent. Yeah.
So during that stage when you're in Texas, had you sort of cut yourself off? This is when your dad was still trying to...
I cut myself off entirely from everyone.
Yeah.
Just kind of packed up my bags and got shipped to the States.
And your dad tried to keep in touch with your biological dad tried to keep in touch with you, but you redirected his emails to your spam folder.
Yeah, for many years. Yeah, I only reconnected with him. I spent 5.5, almost 6 years not talking to him at all. Obviously, still Denali. Like, Denali was still a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
I still talked to my brother constantly, and he would try to encourage me to talk to my dad. But it wasn't until about a year before he died that I started talking to him again and reconnecting with him.
Yeah. And it was also about this time you started your own company. Yeah. So you're 16 years old, and the company's still going today and very successfully, DAngelo Publishing. So DAngelo was, you gave up the Schmidt name.
No, I just made it up.
Really?
It's so funny. It's such a funny story. I literally just made it up. I was just like, DAngelo, that sounds cool.
I thought maybe it's your granddad's name or Barbara.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Just made it up.
So you became Sequoia DAngelo.
Yeah, I thought it sounded cool. You know the really funny part about this whole thing? I was fucking 16. Like, how smart were you at 16? The really funny part about this whole thing is, like, I spelled it wrong. DAngelo is an Italian name. It's D apostrophe. And I put DIANGELO. And this is after I'd lived in Italy and everything. Like, I spelled the name wrong. But then I was committed to it. I had a logo. I had business cards. I had to stick with it, right? So I kept it. And then, like, 4 or 5 years ago, we were doing our international copyright registration and trademark. And we submitted it to them because we were opening a branch in the UK. And we submitted it to them. And the trademark office came back with, we wouldn't usually allow this trademark to exist for a company because it's a last name. But seeing as it's not spelled correctly, we'll allow you to have the trademark.
Yeah, a publisher with spelling issues. What could be?
That's pretty much my life. Yeah.
So was that just like a fuck you to your parents, really?
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was you don't get to be associated with me in any way. I'm going to be successful outside of your name.
Yeah. What you felt let down or abandoned or?
I just wanted to carve my own name and my own place in this earth,
It's a random thing to do at 16.
Yeah.
How do you go about starting a company when you're 16? Where do you even begin? You obviously didn't, at 16, you didn't plan for it to be this big publishing house that it is now.
No, fuck no.
You just couldn't allow yourself to think that big.
Oh, no, I definitely thought that big. I just...
But you don't know where to start.
I've always thought that big, though. Like, I just don't think that I have, like, I don't have that thing that most people have, where something's not possible, or something's not doable, or something's too big. I just don't have that. I've never had that. Yeah. It's great, but it's also a major detriment.
Right. Yep. But, I mean, anything you put your mind to, I think you've got the stubbornness or whatever you want to, with the attribute you want to call it is to do it well. Why publishing?
Oh, fuck. That's a great question. I ask my staff that every day. I'm like, why are we in publishing? I think storytelling is very important.
Yeah.
I think that literature outlives us. I think that the oldest form of storytelling is written form. And there's important knowledge and information that should be passed down through generations. That's why I do it.
Yeah, and it was quite successful quite early on?
No, fuck no.
No?
No, my first book that I ever published was quite successful. But that was also, it took me years to realize why that was successful. It was also somebody who was really well known, and it was circumstantial, and the timing was right on it. But then I failed for many years after that. Many, many, many years. It's still a grind. You don't get into publishing for money, that's for damn sure. You don't get into media for money at all. Like,
yeah, you're right.
Right?
Podcasting. Podcast, they say.
Yeah. I mean, it's just in general, like, I have a few other companies on the side, so, like, I have a real estate development company and stuff like that. And I joke all the time. I'm like, I make more money in a month with my real estate development company than I do in a year with publishing.
Yeah.
Like, that's not why I do it.
Just for the passion or the love of it.
I just think that storytelling is super important. I think there's certain messages that should be brought to the world,
Yeah. Well, that's cool. And congratulations on the success that you've had with that and you continue to have with that.
Thanks.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's cool.
I get to meet cool people and work with cool people, as you do with things like podcasts, right? You get to meet cool people.
100%. And it's just I get to have meaningful conversations with cool people.
Yeah.
Not like from my radio background, it was probably like similar to, like, say, the AM show that you went on this morning. It's
sound bites.
5 minutes.
Yeah. You're
sitting there. If you've got a long answer, I'd be look at my watch like fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But this is a chance to get to go deep and really explore the story, which I fucking love.
Yeah. Long form's great. I remember when podcasts started like popping off, I was like, oh, this is amazing, because books are long form, right? Like, we get to tell a whole story, and then if you're promoting a book, you get a 2-second soundbite snippet of what that story is. In this case, that encompassed 8 years of my life.
Yeah. So let's move to K2 and the accident. How do you feel talking about this now? You talked about it so much, it's like an autopilot sort of thing. Is it still tough to go back?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends in the context in which I'm talking about it, obviously. So, like, there's one particular event that I've done every year for the last 9 years now, which is a gala for the nonprofit that I have.
Denali, named after your brother.
Yeah, Denali Foundation. So we have this, like, big black tie ball in New York City every year. And so, obviously, I do a speech every year, and I bring it up then. And then during a book tour like this, I'll speak about it. But it's interesting. Grief is, it's an ongoing journey, and it's been almost 11 years now, and so a huge part of it is, like, navigating how I feel in these moments and through this time period. And I'm okay talking about it. I'm not like, I'm not in a position where I don't want to discuss it. I think that there's a lot of elements to grieving publicly that have been really helpful and cathartic to me, but also to other people. I remember after my first book came out, that was, like, one of the first things that people, when I was touring, one of the first things people would do was come up to me after a reading or a signing and say, like, I lost my brother, or, my dad died tragically or something. And
yeah, it's sort of like a vulnerability exchange in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's really important in society, because we're not really good with death in general.
Yeah, so for anyone that's like, what are they talking about? So it was the 10th anniversary last year, so it's coming up 11 years that you lost your dad and your brother at the same time in an avalanche on K2. I've heard you say since then, the greatest tragedy is the best thing that ever happened to me.
So funny. So many people repeat that line.
Like
that's
it's hard to see how that's possible to get to that point.
Yeah,
Why? Can you
a lot
explain?
of people repeat that line back to me. I don't even know where I first said it, but a lot of people.
Do you regret saying it now? Because
No, not at all.
No, do you mean it?
I 100% mean it, but it's just so hard for people to understand or
Yeah,
grasp that concept, because the trajectory in which my life was going prior to their death was not one that I would want for my life.
So you were like 22 at the time?
Yeah, and I was, the publishing company had done one book that was predominantly doing a nightlife magazine. I was out partying every fucking night. I was just in a haze that I would have probably stayed in until the end of my life.
What, like, you were smoking a lot of cigarettes, alcohol, cocaine?
All of it.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of drugs, like, I was in a spiral, like a pretty deep spiral. I was still managing to work every day because I'm just dedicated and driven, but I was in a pretty deep spiral.
And I suppose at that age you can, that sort of living is going to catch up with you, but you can sort of stay out late at night and bounce back the next morning. In your 30s, 40s, not so much.
Yeah, just the people I was hanging out with, like I wasn't curious about life anymore in the same way that I was when I was a child or that I am now. Curiosity is a huge part of who I am, and that was stifled during that period of time.
Yeah.
And I think if I didn't have a massive tragedy wake me up and take me out of that situation, I don't know that I ever would have gotten out of it. And so that massive tragedy brought me back to my roots and my core, which was adventure and was exploration, was curiosity, was and a need to understand this life and what the purpose is and who I am in it. And it took a really horrific tragedy, the worst thing that ever happened in my life, for that to bring me to a point where I was living a life that I was happy with again.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's a great explanation. Thanks for that.
You hear other people say it in different ways.
Yeah.
I just don't think most people will say it as poignantly. Like somebody who goes through a horrific divorce, right? And it was a horrible divorce and they were, shattered and heartbroken. But years later, they're like, I'm really glad I went through that. That was a really good thing that happened to me because it allowed me on a different journey in my life.
Yeah, and I think this was a line from your granddad somewhere. He said, I think your dad asked him once if you were ever going to talk to him again, and your granddad had some line about time, which I thought was really profound. Time is the only judge of that, or something like that, which was really cool. So
only time can judge that. Oh.
Yeah. What is that? Only time can judge that. Yeah, I love that because people say time's the great healer, but it's not. It's not a cure-all, is it?
No, I don't believe so.
No. So you weren't a mountain climber at the time, and neither was your brother Denali. He was loved his art, was very good at art.
Well, he was definitely a climber. I mean, he was the youngest person to do Aureki, at that time period. Like he climbed a lot. They did a first descent route on Mount Denali, his namesake, highest peak in North America. And yeah, he was a climber for sure. There's no question. He was a great climber. He was just an artist more than he was a climber, I would say. Like he wanted to have his career be in art and his life be in art. He was just very gifted at climbing.
Right, but he wasn't really sort of match fit to do K2. He'd been just graduated, top of his class.
I'd say he was fitter than most people on the mountain.
Right. I think there was something, a sort of magazine article from your mum. She said, he wasn't really, his head wasn't in the right headspace to do the second highest peak in the world at that time. Something like that.
I mean, I don't know. I think that we have differing opinions. Obviously, she lost a son. She's got her own opinion on stuff. But.
Yeah, but your dad had like this dream of being the first father and son to.
Yeah, so they
Summit
were doing
K2.
a double ascent because they did Broad Peak, which they were the first father and son to do Broad Peak, and that's right next to K2. And then from there, they went over to attempt K2.
Right. Is that something that's done in climbing? Like, I'm just thinking from like a running
Sometimes.
perspective. You wouldn't run a marathon and then 2 weeks later run another one. You sort of,
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's done. I have a good friend, Kristen, who just did like back-to-back multiple mountains. But sometimes it's done like that, where you go in and you're attempting to do 2 mountains at once, or you're acclimating on a certain mountain, then you go to another one. Yeah.
And do you remember the last conversation you had with your brother or your dad? Did they have a phone there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That one's a little tough. I won't talk about that one. That one's a little tough. I had a bit of a tough conversation with Dad.
On K2?
No, just before they died.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Short conversation, long conversation?
Short conversation.
Wow. Is this not in one of your books or anything?
I don't think so. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't think I put it in any of the books. Maybe I did. I don't know. I've done so many interviews and talks on it now.
You forget.
I forget what I even said on what.
Yeah, you forget. I'm like that with the podcast. It's like, did I have that conversation with someone like on the microphone, or was it off?
Or was it off,
I
or
don't know.
who knows? Yeah, it's interesting because I also I laid low for the last few years. Like I think I did like one interview in 2020, I think. But since then I've like laid low, I've been dealing with a lot of my grandfather passing, husband's health issues. Like I've been dealing with navigating life a lot. So I kind of steered clear of having the book come out. Or this book was supposed to come out like 4 years ago.
Have a word to your bloody publishers.
Yeah, exactly. Yell at the publishers.
DAngelo, what even is that?
What a hecker is that?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't have to focus on that, but because of what happened, which was an accident, which had nothing to do with you. Like, are you embarrassed about the last phone call, or?
No. It's just just a tough one, just between me and Dad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fair enough. And then when do you hear that there's been an accident and they can't be found, or that they've been killed?
I got that call from a family friend when base camp kind of made the call that a couple Sherpas went up there and determined that an avalanche had wiped out the camp. So, yeah.
And I've had another guy on the podcast called Adam Perori, who used to play cricket for New Zealand, and he climbed Everest. He had a like near-death experience on Everest, and he said the quote is something like, "The mountain doesn't know you're an expert." I think it's a line. Was the accident, the avalanche that killed your dad and your brother, avoidable, or was it like sloppiness on their part, or?
It's a tough one. I mean, K2 is gnarly. It's like,
So even the most
arguably-
careful climber comes with risk. Yeah.
I mean, arguably one of the most, if not the most dangerous mountain in the world. Like, even you can mitigate all risks humanly possible, but avalanche will still wipe you out. There's nothing you can do with that one. That
seems like such a fucking terrifying way to go as well. Like, I've got a mate that took his own life a few years ago, and he took it in a very violent way. And whenever I think about it, it just like sends a shudder up me. And I'd imagine it's the same for you thinking about, especially with your familiarity with mountains and stuff. I just can't imagine how terrifying that would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, over the course of almost 11 years now, I come to terms with it.
Yeah. So, that must have been a rough time. And then you weren't welcome back at your dad's memorial in New Zealand because.
No, I was so pissed about that.
So that was because of his wife at the time of his death, the one that you punched, and the. You didn't make a great first impression, but then again, she didn't make a great first impression on you either.
No.
So that must have been really fucking hard.
Yeah, but it's been really interesting because, like, whenever I'm back here, I always have his friends, like, come up and say, "Oh, we wish you were at the memorial." That's been, like, an ongoing theme.
Yeah, I feel like that, I mean,
I just got a message this morning. Somebody saw me on the AM show, like somebody I never even heard of. And this is the one thing I love about New Zealand is it's so small. So I get messages all the time from people that are like, I know it's been like, 11 years since they died, but I just wanted to say I climbed with your dad on Mount Cook, and he, like, I guess had done some route on Mount Cook with Dad and was like, saw the AM show clip this morning and wanted to reach out. Like, it's awesome. It's super cool. That's a really cool part about it.
Well, when you get told you're not allowed at the memorial, why aren't you just like, well, fuck you, I'll do what I want?
I think at that point I was just so, like, shattered by everything. You know? You got to remember I was, like, 22. And,
you're still, you're a bad bitch for 22 though. Was it just like just this respectful side that kicks in that you're like, I don't want to be involved in this drama or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I knew that I had my own way to grieve with their losses.
Yeah.
It's also just like you're really jarred when it's such a sudden accident. Going through my grandfather's death this last year, it's like there's something really beautiful about the process of leaving this earth if it's done in the right way, where you're old and you're surrounded by people who love you. But if it's a sudden accident, it changes the nature of how you grieve.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that's something like cancer or any sort of terminal illness, as awful as it is. I suppose the upside of that is it gives you that opportunity to, get your ducks in a row, not leave anything unsaid, and maybe have that moment where you're at peace and you've got some of the faces that you love the most, like standing around you as you depart. So when did you go through the spam folder and read the emails?
God, it must have been maybe 2 or 3 years after he died.
Oh, really? That long?
Yeah. But
you knew they were sitting there the whole time, or did it just like come back to you like, oh, that's right?
I think after I got out of my haze of grief.
Yeah, there must have been like grief for your brother because you loved him and the relationship there was fine, but your dad, was it like part of it sort of guilt on your part, or was it just like anger at him for not being the dad that you thought he should be, or?
No, I think that there was a little bit of anger for, obviously my brother was 25, and in the beginning I felt like, challenged by the fact that he was on K2 and that happened. But it was just, I think it's just a navigation of figuring out that they just lived a very different kind of life, specifically my dad. And it took me going into Pakistan, finding adventure in my own right, living through my 20s in a very similar manner to how my father did. And my brother, for that matter, in terms of determining what our purpose is on this earth and what we're spending our time doing. And it took a lot of that to kind of navigate it.
Yeah. What was it like reading those messages?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think it was, by the time I had read them, it was a few years later, and I wasn't in such shock anymore. I think if you go through a tragic accident like that, the first year is like, you're so in shock. You can't, like, nothing that you do or say can be taken, it all has to be taken with a grain of salt because you're just in such shock. So it was a few years after that, and I'm glad that I waited that long to read through them. What was the
sort of tone of them?
Just checking in on me, wondering how I am. Like, I think that's a huge part of, like, father who loves their children.
It's kind of cool, eh? Like, he never stooped to the level you were playing at, I guess. Or, I mean, you were the child of the relationship, so you deserve a free pass. But
to be fair,
you were completely entitled to have a chip on your shoulder. But the fact that he was never like, oh, whatever, and he kept persisting, like in hindsight, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then, is it like a year after they die that the Facebook thing happens?
2 years.
2 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what is it? So you're watching some like promotional ad on Facebook? No.
Promotional video on Facebook. And then, just jumped on a plane and flew to Pakistan, and that became my first experience with big mountains in the Karakoram.
Yeah, so the Facebook thing, it was there's some line in there about, this mountain can kill you or something like that. Is that what the line is?
His name was Mike Horn. He's like, I don't know, this guy from South Africa. And he was doing a climb of K2, and climbers are very, like, chauvinistic. Some of them are, not all of them. Some of them are. So he was like, showing that the mountain can kill you if you don't know what you're doing. And then flashed some human body parts.
So fucking disrespectful.
Yeah. And then
Were you outraged?
Oh, I was fucking livid. Yeah. Called around to some of the other families, jumped on a plane, went to Pakistan. Yeah.
You're skimming. Wait, you're skimming over this very quickly. So do you get the video?
Because I've done 2 book tours on it and talked about it a million times.
Come on, but there'll be people learning who you are and hearing your story for the very first time. This is a chance to get a couple of extra sales for DAngelo Publishing.
Oh God.
But not that anyone will be able to Google it because the spelling's all fucked up. So do you message the owner of the video and get them to take it fucking down, or?
I think I wrote him a public note.
Yeah.
And at one point he replied to a press inquiry. I think it was a while later. But yeah, no, he was just a fucking. He doesn't matter.
Yeah. So you see this. It turns out it's not your brother, but you think it is, and then get an emergency visa, go to Pakistan. Even though you definitely weren't match fit, you were smoking a pack of durries a day at this point.
Yeah.
Not doing any sort of.
No, I was just in that kind of cloud that I was telling you about.
Yeah. Wait, why didn't you Because you did the trek, so it's a big massive trek to get to the base.
I spent 17 days in the Karakoram for that. Yeah.
Why didn't you just helicopter or something?
Well, I didn't have the money for one. A helicopter there was like 30 grand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was, I didn't have the money at that time.
Yeah.
And two, like, to acclimate, like to heli in, you would only, to helicopter into that altitude, you'd only have like an hour, and then it gets really dangerous for cerebral edema and other things, so you'd have to heli out right away. We needed time to go look for where the body parts were. We didn't know exactly where they were. So the only way to get in with enough time was to acclimate slowly by trekking in. And I'm so glad I did it that way, because that's the way that really kind of opened my eyes to what the world holds.
Yeah, and you may not have even known this at the time, or maybe you did, but it feels like, with the benefit of hindsight in the book that you've written about it, it was like a healing journey for you.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
massive healing journey. Yeah. And that's how I feel about all the books. Like, they've been a massive healing journey. That's why I like doing it.
Yeah, so your second one, that's when you came to New Zealand for a book tour to promote the first book, and you did a self-sufficient bike ride. There's got to be an easier way to heal yourself than
it could be
self-sufficient. Maybe
I just like the challenge,
like a bike with a little trailer on the back with all your supplies.
Yeah.
And, oh my God,
it was great. It smelled brilliant. I showed up to every book signing just smelling absolutely wretched.
I suppose the good thing is you don't get any strangers at the book signing wanting to hug you.
That's definitely true. Nobody wanted to hug me. Nobody wanted to hug me. It was great. I had a lot of fun, actually. It was a great bike. It was a great cycle ride. Like halfway through, I don't know, did you read the second book?
No, I haven't yet.
So halfway through the second book, I talk about my life in books now. Halfway through the cycle ride, it was just outside of Wellington, and I was like cycling along, and this other person was cycling along, and we just started having a chat, and it was starting to get dark, and I got a little lost, and I was like, do you know where this area is? He's like, yeah, but it's kind of dark. Like, do you want to, do you want some company? Like, you're alone on a dangerous road, like not the best for cycling. And I was like, no, but I need a place to like pitch my tent. And he's like, okay, I live right over there. You can come pitch your tent in my yard. This is like so Kiwi hospitality culture.
Yeah.
And so I went and pitched my tent at his yard, like cooked dinner and hung out with him. And then the next day I woke up and it was like, 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. We're about to get going. And he had his bike ready to go. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'd really like to join you for a few days on the road. Would you mind? He ended up cycling with me all the way from Wellington through Hamilton. Like he cycled with me for a while. It was quite a few days. His name's Rod. He's awesome. He's super cool. And he's still, to this day, he messaged me this morning. He's like, I just saw you on the news. How are you doing? Like, he's super cool guy. He was going through a bit of a tough time, like, during that period as well. Like, just split up with his wife, had a bunch of daughters, like, trying to navigate everything. And so he jumped on the road with me. We just had a cycle together and, like, talked about life. It was fantastic. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's funny how sometimes you find people in life when you both need each other.
Yeah. He's great. He's a good guy. Yeah.
Oh, so, so back to the K2 thing. So you realise before you get to that body that you saw on Facebook that it's probably not your brother.
Yeah.
How do you reach that conclusion?
Just kind of dissected it just based off of the other teams that were hit by avalanches at that time.
Right. So you realise your dad and your brother were on a different part of the mountain or a different side.
Yeah. They most likely were swept over the Chinese border.
Okay. Oh, swept over. God, that sounds awful.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you think it is? Just some other unlucky...
So I called around
mountaineer.
to like a lot of the families who had lost people around that time period and asked for their permission to like bury the body parts, things like that. So
everyone would have been yes?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they
Yeah.
didn't want them out there because people were taking photos and
Putting it on Facebook. Yeah, it's
putting it on
outrageous.
Facebook and, like, so they were all like pretty grateful that somebody was going to at least cover them up.
Treat it respectfully. Yeah. And so you find the body.
Body parts. Yeah.
Body parts. Okay. Oh Jesus. Oh, and you've got a DNA kit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what do you test?
I'm not going to go into that.
Right.
It was very graphic.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah.
lot. It was, it took me a long time to kind of come through all of it. And I think like at this point in my life, like for my own sanity and emotional healing, like it was documented in a book and put as a time capsule, put up on a shelf, and I can navigate a way to move on from it, or else I'll just be stuck in this time warp of concentrating on that particular period of my life.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, what is your relationship with therapy? Have you had therapy since then? You've professional help?
Oh, yeah. I've gone in and out of therapy. Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't be like working or sitting here and talking to you if I didn't do some kind of therapy.
Yeah, because it's like the PTSD from that, something like that whole experience, I just can't imagine it.
Yeah, PTSD from that, and then just like in general, just navigating life through all of that, through base jumping. This last year was gnarly,
This last year? Why?
Oh, just because I met a man, fell in love, and he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and, spent 2 months in hospital where he was kind of surrendering to the process. It was very, hard. He couldn't eat, he couldn't swallow, he couldn't do any of it. He had to kind of come to terms with what his life was. And watching all of that was really challenging. And then just navigating life between two worlds for the most part. I'm in business school right now, which is like more like my grandfather's world, where it's, I'm at Yale, which is a very elite university that's like, the campus is like historic and beautiful, and my class is full of incredibly successful people at the top of their field, and it's a very, very different style of life than the adventure world, the house in Twin Falls, jumping off of a bridge daily. And so trying to step between those two worlds is really, really hard. It's really hard to navigate life between two polar opposite worlds.
You seem to just navigate it like a boss, though. Like if you see you on Instagram, you're there in a business suit or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you'll be, going for a month without showering somewhere random.
Yeah. No, I navigated okay, but I think it's really, really important that everyone in the world understands that Instagram is not real. Like, I feel like it is so important people get that, because in life in general, you can look at somebody's Instagram picture and think that they're a certain way and categorized by, what their tagline says or what they're wearing or whatever it may be. But life behind Instagram is full of raw human emotion that a photo and a video can't capture. And I think that that's where things like social media get really dangerous. And that's why I love literature, because I think that words can capture emotion in a way that an Instagram post has a hard time doing.
Yeah, I think even someone that's really open on social media, it's still a curated version of your life, isn't it? And it's
Very
the
curated,
even if you share your most vulnerable moments, they're still moments that you are prepared to share. So it is curated by nature.
Moments you are prepared to share, usually with some kind of intention associated with it. Like you want people to give you, at a girl and love and appreciation, or you want, a brand to promote you, or you want, like, usually you're sharing with a curated approach, or you probably wouldn't be sharing.
Yeah. How's your husband's health now?
He's good. John was cleared to jump back in January, so he's been, jumping off buildings.
Oh my God. Yeah. If I was recovering from brain cancer, that wouldn't be top of my to-do list. We're all different though, aren't we? Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool. God, that must have been, fucking hell. Because, there's, you read about resilience and stuff, and people say tough stuff makes you more resilient and stuff, but did it feel like that for you? You're like, okay, well, I went through this as a kid. I lost my dad and my brother. I can handle this. Or does it just feel like it's another gigantic mountain in front of you?
It's so funny. I read a quote the other day that was like, just because they carry it well doesn't mean it's not heavy. Like, and I think that's very poignant. Like, I think in general, I carry stuff very well because I had to survive for so long. But, it's an ultimate question of existentialism, of our purpose on this earth and why we're here and what we want to discover and what we want to figure out. And I think that I've gotten as far as I have because I'm able to power through stuff and really go through it and feel everything that comes over me with it and try to navigate my way through it. Which I'm not sure if that comes from just survival instincts. Maybe it will take me years more of therapy to figure this out. But whatever it comes from, I'm glad I have it, because I know a lot of people who probably wouldn't be able to survive through a lot of the stuff that I've been through recently.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, not, what do you mean recently? Like
just the brain tumor and all of that.
Oh, okay. Recent. Right.
Well, I guess the whole thing.
Yeah. I just wonder
We're going into the shit show of Sequoia's life then.
What's your time frame for recent? Because, it's a lot. Yeah. How long did it take you to forgive your dad and make peace with that sort of relationship?
It really, really helped spending a lot of time in the mountains.
Yeah.
That's like the most healing thing ever when you go through anything tragic, is just spending time in nature and the mountains. And, it's funny. I went out to Piha yesterday, I guess, and just sat on the beach and did like a little meditation for a while. And I forget like how calming and peaceful and relaxing and healing nature is sometimes. And so it's important to kind of take yourself out and stick yourself in nature for a minute. And that's, I think, what really helped with the processing of the stuff with Denali. And that's why I did the second, when I came back during that second book, was like cycling around New Zealand. That's why I did it that way, to be out in nature and to try to heal and process through all of it.
Yeah. And what about your relationship with your mum? How's that now? You guys good?
Yeah, I just talked to her the other day.
Yeah.
We navigate life, in terms of figuring out our relationship. We're still figuring it out. I think you're always kind of figuring out relationships with your parents.
Yeah. It's a constant work in progress. But yeah, losing your dad, was that sort of a catalyst for like healing things with your mum, or realising, fuck, I can't put this off because who knows how long we've got?
Yeah, I think that definitely plays a part in it.
Yeah.
Like whenever you go through like a horrific or tragic situation, it definitely plays a part in determining what you want the rest of your life to look like and not putting things off.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, there's another thing that we haven't even talked about. Your silent retreats.
Yeah.
We're about Thailand, no?
So most of mine are done in Thailand.
Right.
Yeah. So I did one
Like 7 days
in
silence.
October. Yeah, I just did one on October.
How many have you done? You've done more than one.
I think I've done 5 now.
Oh my
6.
God.
Yeah, I've done a few.
So you
7 days.
So you just sit there in silence, just playing on your phone, scrolling on Instagram.
No, you're not allowed phones. No phones, no books, no writing materials, no nothing.
So you're just literally alone in your own thoughts.
Literally a change of clothes and a toothbrush.
Why do you keep going back? Do you get something
Oh,
different
it's
from it each
great.
time?
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so good for you. Have you ever sat in silence for 9 to 10 hours a day?
Terrified of my own thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, most people are.
7.
It's completely normal. Most people are terrified of their own thoughts.
Right.
It's really scary. It's very confronting. You usually lose a few people in the group by the time you're done.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Why? Why do you keep going back? What do you learn? Do you learn something different things each time?
Every time I learn something different. Just about myself, about what I want, about my navigation, about I think meditation is super important. Very hard. Way harder than jumping off a cliff. That's for damn sure. To me, jumping off a cliff, it's a bit of a pussy move. You sit in silent meditation for most of your life in a monastery in the middle of, the Himalayas. You got my full respect, for sure.
Why aren't you allowed writing utensils? Surely it'd be good to write some stuff.
Because the idea is you're supposed to completely clear your mind of all thoughts. You're supposed to be in the moment, completely present. Clear your mind of all thoughts. And if you have a phone or writing utensils or a book or anything else, that is evoking thoughts.
Right. But are you ever free from thoughts? I don't know. You can
reach that stage in meditation, depending on what style of meditation you do. Vipassana meditation, I think that you can reach. I definitely have reached moments of clarity of thought, clarity of mind. So an ability to concentrate solely on your breathing and nothing more.
I studied TM, Transcendental Meditation.
Cool.
I did that religiously for maybe 5 or 6 years. I've been slack with it since. But you
meditate. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but 20 minutes twice a day. And as soon as you have a thought, I'm not thinking about anything. Well, that in itself is a thought.
Yeah.
So they come back in, but I can't imagine being in silence for 7 days. Do you find yourself just weeping uncontrollably over times?
The first meditation retreat I ever did was after Dad and Denali died, and absolutely, I found myself weeping. But since then, no, I wouldn't say I find myself weeping. It depends on what I'm going through in the period of my life that I'm going into a meditation retreat. But yeah, I think it can evoke emotion, but the point of it is to clear your mind of thought.
So why do you keep going back?
I think I'll probably...
Is it like a reset?
I think I'll be a student of meditation for my entire life. I don't practice on a daily basis. I'm not doing the 2 times 20 minutes a day. I don't do that on a daily basis. I just go all in on a retreat. That's how I do most of my life. I go all in. like if I'm going to meditate, I'll just go 7 days of silence. Like, I'll just go hard.
you should climb Mount Maunganui. No, I want to do that one there. Oh,
yeah, that's kind of how I do life in general.
Yeah. Just all or nothing, right?
I just figure, I mean, it's fucking short. Like, why not? If you're going to do it, you might as well go all the way.
Yeah. Do you want to have a family?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that, I'm at the age now where if I'm going to do it, I think that it's something that should be thought about a lot more than most people think about it.
So you're not necessarily ready, but you realize the biological clock.
No, I mean, in general, in society, people will have kids without really thinking if they want to have kids.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that that's something that is both people's priority is we're going to have a child and we're going to concentrate on this child. Not we're going to have a child because society tells us to have a child, or we're going to have a child because we just want a child. Like, it should be you really understand the commitment that you're getting into, and maybe this is my childhood abandonment post-trauma shit. But I think that if you're going to have a child, you should really want that child. And you should really concentrate your energy and your effort and shape your life around bringing that child into this world. Or else it's unfair to the child. So I'm not sure if I'm at that stage or not.
Yeah. How, if you do decide to become a parent, how would you be different to your own parents?
I think I'd do things a lot differently than my parents did them. But there are a lot of elements that my parents put into their roles and responsibilities that I would include. Like, my mom was very nurturing early on and very, very loving, and used like holistic medicine, different approaches, had us eat all organic, couldn't watch screens, like all of that stuff. Absolutely brilliant. Like, I would definitely take that and apply that. My dad's, wild side and exposure to nature, and I think those are all really, really important elements to raising a healthy child. But I think there is elements of stability that I would probably do quite differently.
Yeah.
And then it's also like, if that's something that my partner wants, and what our concentrations would be, because I think that his whole life rotates around base, obviously. So,
yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because I can understand you want stability for your kids, but by normal conventional standards, I suppose, like, you and your husband are not like an overly conventional couple.
Yeah.
You're not the white picket fence couple, you know what I mean?
No, definitely not. But we have a lot of friends who are able to navigate children while continuing to kind
doing
of live
fun
that
stuff.
life. Yeah. And I would never want a child to feel that we resent them in any way for not living that style of life.
Yeah.
So I think that that's like an important navigation of parenthood. But I'm also a really firm believer in, I work a lot. Like, I run a company, and I work way too much to be realistic. I live in America, which is a capitalistic culture, and I work a fuck ton. And we live in a culture where that's okay. And I personally believe that, like, I wouldn't want to have a child that I had nannies raising. Like, I'd want a child that I could breastfeed, and I could be there, and that could be like a pure connection. That's the only real way to bring a child into this world, in my belief. Like, I don't know if I really agree with current culture of the way that children are being raised. So, yeah, it's something I'm thinking about and navigating.
Yeah. Well, something you just said about having your own business and working a fuck ton. You do, but also somehow, and I think this is inspiring as well, you managed to fit everything else in. You managed to fit in these fucking 1 month expeditions or whatever where you're off the phone, or your 1 week silent retreats where you're not on the phone.
Well, I also don't have a family. And that makes it a lot easier. Like,
you got
we
employees,
don't have
though.
children.
That's a family in a way.
And that took a lot of navigation to figure out a system where, at one point I was way too big. I had way too many employees. and I became a people manager. And I was like, fuck, all right, let me get rid of some of you. And now I have a really, like, we have an amazing team. At DAP, the publishing company, amazing team. Like, I know they're handling everything right now. I can be on this book tour. Shit sorted, right? Same thing with, with Denali Foundation, with the nonprofit. Like, I know that it's sorted. It's solid, right? Same thing with the, rental property. I know the rental properties are getting paid. Like, so now I've been able to kind of navigate a system where it gives me a little bit more time, but I'm still figuring it out. It's not fucking easy. Like, and that's something that, yeah, I think Instagram's really dangerous when it comes to stuff like business, because I see constantly like the entrepreneurs and the like hustle culture and work really hard. Like, I've been doing this shit since I was 16 years old. Like,
Yeah.
I legitimately have been doing this like half of my life. And I can tell you right now, like, the way that it's presented, entrepreneurship and owning companies and all of that, not a fucking walk in the park. Like, takes stress beyond stress. Like, your ability to deal with situations. If anything, my life of traumas prepared me to deal with business in a way that most people couldn't handle, because business in general, trying to run a company and have employees, fucking hard. Really, really hard. And we struggled, my husband and I struggled a lot with that my work ethic and my mentality towards business is very, very different than most people's, because it requires that to keep a company running, especially a company in media, especially a company in books, right? So I think that's like an important thing to note is, yes, I now am at a point where I can do both. I can go to a silent retreat and still have a company running. But there was a period of my life where I couldn't, where 100% of my focus was trying to get from one month to the next and navigate how to keep the company running. So where most people start out in their career, they come out of college in the States, they'll go to college, maybe they're 25 when they really start in their career, right? And then they reach a certain point. What's 17 years plus 25?
25, 35, 42.
42. That's when most people start really becoming successful. That's when most people have reached the point in their life where they can maybe start to navigate, how do I take this family vacation? How do I do that, right? So if you think of my life, I'm actually like way earlier than most people, but I've worked as much as most 42-year-olds now, right?
Yeah.
Because I
You
started
at
so
16,
young.
yeah.
Because I started so young. So when people look at my life now and they're like, you're able to navigate it really well, you're successful. Yeah, it's because I've been doing it for so fucking long. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah, and that scrappy street fighter mentality, or whatever you want to call it, it probably prepared you well for the life of an entrepreneur, of a startup.
And it got me to a certain point. Now, like, that's why I chose to go to school this year, is because now I'm at this point, but I'm in rooms with congresswomen and sometimes ambassadors, and I'm like, okay, I got to get a little bit of formal education, because my scrappiness will only get me so far. It can get me to the door, but in order to look good while I walk in the door and have a proper conversation, I should probably refine it a little bit,
Yeah. What are your goals for the future? Are you a goal setter? You got the mountain stuff you do, that requires a fair bit of planning. But is there planning in other aspects of your life? Like, do you have a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan?
Yeah, vision board, all that shit.
Yeah.
I learned that actually I have a couple of authors who are like motivational speakers and all that. So they do vision boards. Right now I'm working on my next book. It's called The Comfort Zone. And it's more of a business book than it is straight adventure. But the idea is to take elements from my adventurous mentality, speaking of being in two worlds, and applying them to business. So like, we have this thing in the office called the hit list. That's like all of the people that we want to sign as authors, and then there's like, it's stupid, but I used to like stalk them all and like to try to get them signed.
Oh, I saw a clip online about this. The Goosebumps guy.
Yeah, R.L. Stein is one.
Yeah. Goosebumps, famous sort of like teen series, kid series.
One of the most famous in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
You chipped away.
Huge author. Chipped away, yeah. For 4 years I stalked him and he finally signed with me.
You
But
wore him
like
down.
that mentality that you're talking about, that scrabby, don't take no for an answer mentality, applying it to business and then taking the lessons that I learned within that, and it's really all about like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
Wait, what is your comfort zone?
My comfort zone?
Yeah, is your comfort zone as bizarre as this would sound like when you're jumping, or is it when you're at home on the sofa with your husband? What is it?
That's a really great question.
Is it?
I'll tell you what's not in my comfort zone that I'm exploring right now that will probably be in the next book is some of the stuff we talked about, like navigating past trauma. That's like not in my comfort zone at all because I've always just powered through everything. Been like a survivor, like you can get through it, you know, the tough way.
Yeah.
But I've never like sat down and really introspectively looked at, okay, does this determination and motivation to achieve and be successful come from a place of wanting to do it, or does it come from a place of feeling the need to do it because of abandonment issues or past trauma or any of that stuff? So I'm exploring that now through therapy, and I think that's really outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
There's nothing, just like you said, with sitting alone with your own thoughts is terrifying for you,
Yeah.
right? Like there's nothing more terrifying to me than the exploration of who I am. And that is really outside of my comfort zone. So,
But I feel like you've done more of that than what most of us will ever do.
probably,
Yeah.
which is really sad, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, I feel like half of the reason we're on this earth is to explore that, right?
Yeah,
it's
for
not
sure.
just to live in this kind of really boring bubble. It's to explore that shit, not
Yeah.
just physically, but emotionally as well.
Yeah, and I suppose after losing your brother and your dad on the same day in such a dramatic fashion, you know, you realise the importance of that more than most of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if you could go back and tell your teenage self something, what would it be? If you could go back to that girl stealing from the warehouse in Hawke's Bay,
The Wari Fari.
what would you tell her? You tell her everything's going to be all right. Keep doing what you're doing. What would you say? Don't go too hard on your dad, like, because his time here's limited.
No, I think it would be really important. This is a great question, by the way. You should ask every guest this question. It's a fantastic question because it makes you really, really contemplate. I think if I were to talk to this scrappy little girl in the Wadi Fadi who just got arrested for stealing, I think I would tell her that it's okay to be scrappy. It'll get you really far in life. But at some point, you need to stop and take a look at why you're being scrappy. I think that would be really, really important.
It's hard though, isn't it? Because I get the feeling, maybe this is psychoanalyzing a bit too much, but even setting up something like a publishing company, it almost feels like a fuck you to your dad at the time. You know, because it's complete opposite to, like, climbing the world's highest mountain, isn't it? Setting up a publishing company.
Yeah, could be. And it's funny because it's like, that publishing company, I mean, we have over 100 books that we've published, and we've worked with some incredible authors, and I've helped other people tell their life stories, and it ended up being such a great experience. But, it's an interesting navigation of, like, how much of your life is done for you and how much of your life is done circumstantially and how much of your life is done because of your parents. And I think you can ask that to fucking anyone, right?
Yeah, absolutely you can. Hey, this has been a great chat. It's been really good. How's it been for you?
It's been awesome. All I can think of is Tickle Tuesdays. I'm like drinking all the water thinking of Tickle Tuesdays.
Yeah. Hey, it's nice to finally connect with you. I've done so much reading and researching.
I feel like I already know you because of your voice, Tom.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Years at the edge.
I got all claiming when we met just Tinkle Tuesday. Like, out of all the Out of all the little features and segments I did in 30 years of radio, that's the fucking one you remember.
Yeah, I mean, how bad did your parents fuck you up that you didn't take on Tuesdays?
Badly. I think they all fuck us up, eh?
Yeah.
Everyone has like a slight grudge on their shoulder about their parents. But if you're a parent now, like you might think you're doing a lot better than what your parents did, but you're fucking your kid up. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why when you ask me about kids, I'm like, you're going to fuck them up no matter what. So. And the way I see it is like, parents are going to fuck up their kids no matter what. So if I chose my parents in this lifetime, I did a damn good job of picking the ones that would like put me in tough ass positions, so I would come out a lot more gritty.
Well, yeah, you are gritty. You're a gangster. You're a badass. You're a savage, and it's been wonderful to sit down with you today.
Likewise.
Sequoia DAngelo.
Schmidt.
We go with Schmidt.
Sure, why not? We'll just make up more names. I like Sequoia. I feel like it's unique enough. That would be like a life. You asked me my life goals. I think if I could get to a point where people just know me as Sequoia, that's like pretty badass.
It is.
So
It's
I'll
got Beyonce
that.
energy to it.
I know.
One name only required.
One name only. I love it.
Hey, thanks for
Tom.
your time today. It's been great. Good luck for the future.
Thanks, Tom.